Welcome to the Exploress, the Halloween edition. Time traveling through women's history, one era at a time. I'm Kate Armstrong. People whisper about a woman living in the Old Quarter who can give you the world for a price. You've heard all sorts of tales. Some say her followers gather deep in the bayou at night, participating in dark rituals and orgies. Some say she's got important people, even the governor, in her pocket. Yet others say she eats babies, and that she learned her magic in the depths of the African jungle. Everyone says her potions can heal you, or that her charms can kill you. To get what you want, you're willing to take the risk. You go to the woman's house and tell her you want the object of your desire to love you back. The Voodoo Queen nods once and says that she can help you. She has you write the name of your love down 3 times on 3 separate lines. Then she tells you to turn the paper 90 degrees and write your own name on top of hers. You fold it up, again 3 times, stick the paper inside the core of an apple, and stuff it in a jar filled with sweet syrup. A pink candle is placed on top, which she tells you to burn, but only on Monday. While you do, you're meant to say the Lord's Prayer and let the candle burn all the way down. You'll repeat this ritual 2 more times on Wednesday and Friday. Will it work? The woman says it will if you perform it correctly. Oh, how desperately you want to believe. On today's Halloween special, we are heading back to the 19th century to meet the infamous Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, Marie Laveau. So, grab your candles and your gris-gris. Let's go traveling. But first, a quick shout out to some of my patrons. My warrior queens, Alexis, Amanda, MCF, Amy, Kate, Ika, Jessie, June, Neve and Sloan, and Sarah. My imperial empresses, Alyssa, Faye and Whimsy Soapworks, Letitia, Sally, Samara, and Teresa. And my lady pharaohs, Bridget, Kate, Kot, Kimberly, Laura, Lori, Sophie, and the Queen Courtneys. This Halloween special was last year's Patreon bonus episode. This year, patrons have an all-new exclusive spooky bonus to enjoy, which is available right now. To become a patron and find out about all the perks they get behind the scenes, just go to my website or visit the link in my show notes. Before we get started, a content warning. While this episode doesn't contain anything gratuitously graphic, it does contain references to animal and human sacrifice and some things that are a little bit bloody. Just warning you. Marie is born in a unique American city at a particularly fascinating time. In the 1850s, New Orleans had a population of well over 100,000. Founded by the French and colonized by the Spanish, it became an American city in 1803. Both the French and the Spanish had a more relaxed attitude toward Black people than the English colonizers elsewhere, which is part of the reason New Orleans at this time has one of the largest populations of free Blacks in the South. That is also thanks to the Spanish law of self-purchase, which allows enslaved people to buy back their freedom. More than 50% of the city's residents are immigrants. Many hail from Cuba, Ireland, and Germany. Enslaved Africans and their descendants make up over 1/3. But New Orleans is perhaps best known for its large Creole population, a mixed-race mishmash of Native American, French, West African, and Spanish cultures that contributes hugely to art and culture in the city. New Orleans is also known as the hotbed of voodoo. Many of the free Blacks living in New Orleans emigrated from Haiti, fleeing the violence of the Haitian Revolution. In the 1700s, the French sent thousands of West African slaves to Haiti to work in grueling conditions on plantations. Many brought the Voodoo religion with them. The French tried to ban the Haitians from practicing any religion other than Catholicism. Voodoo practitioners risked imprisonment, a whipping, or worse. But many kept practicing in secret, or even during Mass, which meant blending Catholicism with Voodoo. The most devout held fast to their faith. Eventually, these Haitian enslaved successfully rebelled and overtook their French colonizers. The war ended in 1804 with Haiti's independence. The revolution shocked slave-owning Americans and caused a wave of fear about any large black population who seemed to have a little bit too much power. And it turns out that a voodoo priestess played a large role in organizing the rebellion. People whispered that she, and some powerful voodoo spirits, had been the key to their success. When the Haitians arrived in New Orleans, they brought their religion with them, which injected new life into the city's existing voodoo community and caused it to thrive like never before. At its most basic level, voodoo is a blend of the folk religions of the Fon, Yoruba, and Congo peoples of Africa, with a healthy dose of Catholic mixed in. The word itself simply means spirit of God. In some ways, Catholicism and voodoo aren't all that different. Both recognize evil spirits, the existence of an afterlife, and a supreme being. But voodoo adds a pantheon of lesser gods called Elwa. They mediate between God and humanity, and usually work with Catholic saints and ancestral spirits as well. Some practitioners can be ridden or possessed by the Elwa, allowing them to act as oracles to predict people's futures or give them advice. Animal sacrifice is, historically, also a part of African voodoo practice. Usually this involves a chicken, a goat, or a black cat. But we don't have good evidence that this is a common practice in American voodoo, or that Marie does it as part of her practice. But as we'll see, there are people who are afraid of voodoo and are happy to make it seem scarier than it is. Like most religions, voodoo was founded as a way to explain life's twists and turns, its natural disasters, illness, and death, and to provide hope, meaning, and community. Which doesn't sound all that scary, does it? So why are white people in 19th century America so terrified of voodoo? First of all, they are, rightly, afraid of the connection between voodoo and the successful slave uprising in Haiti. There have already been some uprisings in the South, and slave owners see voodoo as a breeding ground for potential rebellion. And so many powerful whites decide to paint Haitians as a savage, backward society, so no one will try to emulate them. The Boston Herald even calls Haiti our cannibal neighbor to the south. How lovely. For some white people, the practice of voodoo becomes another supposed example of how Africans are barbaric and savage, in need of both containment and control. Voodoo is called animalistic, brutish, and the very embodiment of evil. In 1896, the New Orleans Times-Democrat describes a religious voodoo ceremony thusly.
The Voodoos had worked themselves to such a frenzy that they began tearing out their clothes, until finally, nearly 100 impassioned black savages danced as naked as islanders to the beating of ox skulls and tom-toms, the weird crooning of the hags, and the sharp ejaculations of bucks and wenches. At the height of the revel, the king kicked out the fire, and in the light of the embers upset the cauldron on the ground, and, grasping the cat in his fingers, began thrusting the awful mess into his mouth, the others following his example. The dance was now nothing but the lewdest and most outrageous orgy.
Eating cats and having orgies? These monsters must be stopped. Voodoo is painted as akin to devil worship, and stories like the above become convenient proof that black people are inferior over sexualized criminals. Voodoo becomes yet another justification for their continued subjugation. It's important to demonize, ridicule, and dismiss the religion of African Americans as savage and other in order to prove that segregation is still necessary. Even as they dismiss voodoo as ignorant superstition, though, whites are also clearly terrified of it. Many papers carry panicked headlines like this one from the Huntsville Gazette.
Henry Harris, the voodoo doctor of Desha County, Arkansas, who is believed to have killed many persons with his diabolical arts, has been convicted of manslaughter.
White America fears voodoo because it poses a threat to the white patriarchal supremacy the country was built on. It turns out that voodoo does something pretty dangerous. It brings together people from all walks of life. Voodoo Queen Marie Laveau has many black men and women in her congregation, but she has just as many white followers, many of whom are extremely wealthy and influential. As we learned way back in Season 1, this racial mixing and mingling is something that seems to raise a huge amount of social and political alarm. An 1850 New Orleans Daily Picayune article perfectly exemplifies the fear with which American society views mixed-race voodoo gatherings.
Notwithstanding the severity of the enactments against the unlawful assembling of slaves, this kind of meeting appears to be rapidly on the increase. Carried on in secret, they bring the slaves into contact with disorderly free Negroes and mischievous whites, and the effect cannot be otherwise than to promote discontent, inflame passions, teach them vicious practices, and indispose them to the performance of their duty to their masters.
Indispose them to serve their masters? Oh no! The dangerous racial mixing associated with voodoo obliterates the whole concept of the color line and presses on some white men's greatest fears about interracial fraternization and free sexual license. Remember, it will take the Supreme Court until 1967 to declare interracial marriage legal in all states. Much of the violence and lynching that takes place in the latter half of the 1800s is predicated on the false idea that black men are hypersexual beasts who want to rape white women. The fact that voodoo proves that black men and white women can be in the same room without sexual violence really shakes a lot of people's trees. And so, newspapers continue to rationalize white supremacy by reporting that interracial orgies, animal sacrifices, drunken dancing, nude bathing, and cannibalism are all taking place at the voodoo ceremonies held in the remote wooded areas around Louisiana's Lake Pontchartrain. So many reporters descend on the area, hoping to see these rituals firsthand, that blacks begin staging bogus ceremonies and, quite rightly, charging admission. One flummoxed reporter, upon viewing a very tame religious ceremony for the first time, asked,
"When did they start eating babies?"
"Oh, honey." With all that in mind, let's meet Marie Laveau. For as many myths and false legends revolve around voodoo, just as many swirl around this influential voodoo queen. Some people say she was
one of the kindest women who ever lived.
Others call her a charlatan and a witch doctor. One newspaper of the time refers to her as
the notorious hag who reigns over the ignorant and superstitious as the queen of the voodoos.
The notorious HAG. Should we make t-shirts? I definitely want that on my tombstone. Okay, right, sorry. Back to Marie. Most people in New Orleans simply know her as the Voodoo Queen. People whisper that the Queen of England and the Emperor of China are among her many esteemed clients, and that she walks like she owns the city. It might sound like hyperbole, but Marie is indeed the Queen, which is a real title in the Voodoo religion. It essentially means she is the leader of the voodoo community. Like the Haitian mambos, or priestesses, she serves as the spiritual authority of her congregation, leading ceremonies, rituals, and prayers, and providing guidance to her followers. As Voodoo Queen, Marie is a powerful and well-connected figure, and that is what makes her dangerous to some people. This is another reason some whites hate and fear voodoo so much. It elevates women to positions of power and gives them a path to success and influence. Marie challenges the white American patriarchy simply by being herself. Unfortunately, much of what we know about Marie comes from sensationalist newspaper articles or wildly fictional novels, which don't paint an accurate picture of her life. There are a number of reasons why we don't have much concrete historical information about Marie. First, she couldn't read or write, so she didn't leave any personal records. Plus, court records in New Orleans are hard to comb through, as they're often translated between French, Spanish, and English. Most importantly, Marie is a free woman of color, which presents its own challenges to historians. Enslaved people didn't have last names, and when they gained their freedom, they sometimes took the last name of their former owner, or they created a totally new first and last name. Similarly, a woman in New Orleans might take her husband's last name if she's following English or French customs. But if she's following the Spanish custom, she'll keep her maiden name. Marie pops up in archives as the Widow Paris, Dame Christophe Glapion, Marie Glapion, Marie Paris, and Marie Laveau, with Laveau being spelled about 9 different ways. Luckily, about 60 years after her death, the Louisiana Writers Project will dispatch a research team to collect archival material and interview elderly Black New Orleanians who remember Marie in the late 1800s. Much of what we know about her comes from those interviews. Here's what we know. Marie is born out of wedlock in New Orleans in 1801 to Marguerite Henry and Charles Laveau. Her grandmother was an enslaved woman who bought her own freedom. Her mother was also enslaved, although her owner eventually freed her. Marie is the first woman in her family born free. Her mother is Black and Choctaw Indian. Her father is a wealthy, free Creole man who buys and sells real estate and slaves. There isn't much information about Marie's childhood, although we do know that both of her parents are very religious. She is baptized by a Spanish priest, and Marie is raised Roman Catholic. In 1819, she marries a carpenter named Jacques Paris, who emigrated from Haiti, and Marie's father gives them a house as a wedding gift. The couple have 2 daughters, although both of them die in early childhood. Around 1824, Jacques goes missing. Historians think he likely abandons Marie, but Marie insists that he died, and she takes to calling herself the Widow Paris. You can't blame her. It does have sort of a glamorous ring. In 1826, Marie begins a relationship with the fabulously named Captain Christophe Glapion, a wealthy white man from an aristocratic French family who serves with distinction in the military. Christophe and Marie are devoted to each other, and they live together for 30 years. But they're never officially married due to the anti-miscegenation laws of the time. She is technically his mistress, which isn't considered a big deal in New Orleans. It makes her part of a unique trend at the time called placage, or a legally sanctioned mistress relationship between a white man and a free woman of color. First codified by the French and the Spanish, it's actually a formal legal category in these situations. Men are encouraged to provide homes for these ladies and to care for any children they might bear. The couple have at least 7 children together, although only 2 survive to adulthood. Marie Heloise Eucharist and Marie Philomene. They live in a cottage on St. Anne Street, which was once Marie's grandmother's house, and which Christophe purchased after her passing. The cottage is also home to several enslaved people. That's right, Christophe and Marie own slaves. This sounds odd and definitely unfortunate to our modern ears, but it's fairly common for free people of color to own slaves at this time. They view it as an investment opportunity. In total, the couple will buy and sell 8 enslaved people, usually holding onto them for a short period and then selling them off at a profit. Not a comfortable historical fact, but here we are. By 1830, Marie's main source of income is voodoo. She's risen to the top of the New Orleans hierarchy to become their voodoo queen. But what does the practice of voodoo actually look like? The main intent isn't to curse your enemies, but to help others and influence the outcome of life events by connecting with the spirits or ancestors. In practice, this can take a variety of forms: prayers, ceremonies, rituals, palm or tarot readings, divination, calling upon the spirits for guidance, and creating talismans. There are many so-called voodoo doctors in New Orleans in Marie's time, working out of their homes or small shops, selling spiritual products like herbs, incense, candles, and perfumes, meant to drive away spirits or gain their blessings. Others sell homemade gree-gree, or amulets, potions, talismans, and spells offering luck, love, health, or revenge. Some truly believe in their products, and others are just trying to make a quick buck. Marie Laveau's brand of voodoo is a bit different. She's a devout Catholic, remember, and so many of her rituals feature aspects of Roman Catholicism, like holy water, saints, and altars. This may explain why she has such a mixed congregation. Some report that attendants at her ceremonies are often more white than black. Marie's altars often feature Catholic saints like St. Peter, St. Anthony, and St. John the Baptist, but they're put side by side with voodoo deities such as Dambalawedo, the serpent god of peace, purity, and wealth, Baron Samedi, the god of death, and Mamiwati, a mermaid goddess who serves as an ambassador to all African water spirits. Marie mostly operates out of her cottage. As one of her followers remembers,
She had so many candles burning. I don't see how that house never caught on fire. She had all kinds of saints' pictures and flowers on the altar.
Another recalled that Marie
Had a big statue of St. Anthony, and she would turn him upside down on his head in her yard when she had work to perform. In the front room, she had an altar for good luck charms, money-making charms, husband-holding charms. On this altar, she had a statue of St. Peter and St. Mary, a colored saint.
Marie's neighbors remember that she also had an altar in her back room with statues of a bear, a lion, a tiger, and a wolf for the so-called bad work. That's where she would prepare charms to break relationships or drive people out of your life. Marie also holds a weekly service in her cottage.
Everybody would kneel before the altar and rap on the ground 3 times. 1, 2, 3. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. After, we would sing in Creole. It was just like a mass in a regular church.
Following these Roman Catholic prayers, the participants dance to an accordion and a chorus of singers, and lay out the parterres, a Haitian voodoo ritual in which a feast is spread out on a white tablecloth, meant as an offering to the spirits. It's followed by a potluck.
We would all stay afterwards and eat and drink and have a good time.
One follower remembers,
There was chicken, cakes, and liquor, also red beans and rice to eat.
As Voodoo Queen, Marie holds special spiritual rituals and celebrations. In the 1850s, blacks aren't allowed to gather in public except on Sundays. And so that's when Marie holds a ceremony for her people in Congo Square. Additionally, she presides over the ceremony on St. John's Eve to celebrate John the Baptist. This one takes place on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, and despite what the white newspapers say, there are no midnight orgies. Instead, prayers are chanted, altars are erected, bonfires are lit. People eat, drink, dance, and swim in the lake by moonlight. Sounds like a pretty good time to me. Marie's role in her community is divinely appointed. Queens are chosen by the spirits themselves. They're usually given a thorough spiritual education by an older mentor, in which they hone their supernatural abilities, learn how to perform complex rituals, and practice communing with spirits. Marie was mentored by Dr. John Montagny, a famed New Orleans herbalist and gree-gree merchant. Dr. John became quite wealthy charging people for his skills, and Marie makes her living much like he did. She tells people's fortunes, divines their futures, offers advice, performs exorcisms, and makes gree-gree. It's said that her charms, spells, potions, and powders can cure illness, grant desires and good fortunes, attract a lover, and even destroy an enemy, should that be more your style. Marie makes most of her money working for her wealthy white lady clients. As Mimi Dallavine remembers,
There was always a line of carriages in front of Marie's house, and the ladies who entered the house were heavily veiled. The women of the elite of New Orleans did not hesitate to go and consult Marie Laveau, who would give them powders to use on their husbands and bones and skeletons to put in their pockets.
Marie Deed recalls that clients paid her plenty of money to win cases in the courts or to get husbands for them. She got $100 for getting a man for a white woman. The colored people could not afford her high price. Marie gets results, and she is so well respected that even wealthy white guys come to her for advice and assistance. Lawyers, planters, politicians, and businessmen all consult with her before making any major decisions. Joseph Alfred remembers that Marie
only worked for the rich people. She never went to jail either. She was in with all the lawyers, policemen, judges, and big city officials.
And as a result of her powerful clientele, the police largely leave her alone. But anybody who needs help is welcome to come to Marie, rich or poor, black or white. She often works pro bono, assisting the needy, including many runaway slaves. Raymond Rivaros remembers,
a poor woman came crying to Marie that her son was in jail, but she had no money. Marie Laveau told her to go home and not to worry. Within an hour, she came to the woman's house with the son and never asked a penny for her work.
So Marie is doing a lot of good work, with maybe the occasional curse thrown in. So why are the police always targeting people associated with voodoo? While voodoo is never formally outlawed, the police often target gatherings in which people are suspected of practicing it. They arrest participants on the basis of unlawful assembly, a common tactic that Southern police used before the Civil War to prevent the enslaved and free people of color from gathering. Authorities also attempt to put a stop to the voodoo practice of fortune-telling, selling amulets, and the like. They arrest voodoo doctors with the excuse that they are simply protecting ignorant black people from being ripped off. Laws are passed that state you can't practice medicine without a license, or that you need a permit to operate a business, as another way to suppress the practice of voodoo. Marie has enough street cred that she is never actually arrested. That'd be akin to going after a mob boss, but she does have her fair share of run-ins with the law. She once lodges a complaint with the police about them confiscating one of her altar statues during a raid. Then, in July of 1859, she's called before the court for keeping a
noisy and disorderly house.
The New Orleans Daily Crescent reports that
Marie Clarice Laveau was complained of by her neighbor, who charged that Marie and her wenches were continuously disturbing his peace with their infernal singing and yelling. The police say the noise was the hellish observance of the mysterious rites of voodoo. This is one of the worst forms of African paganism, and is believed in and practiced by large numbers of Negroes in the city and by some white people. Her Majesty, Queen Marie, was duly sent after.
There are no court records or newspaper articles that continue to cover the matter, so it's highly likely it was dropped. No one messes with the Queen of Voodoo. Marie is feared, but she is also revered, in large part due to her charity work. For example, she often visits prisoners on death row to comfort and pray with them. An 1871 Daily Picayune article reports,
For more than 20 years, whenever a human being has suffered the final penalty in the parish prison, an old colored woman has come to his cell and prepared an altar for him. This woman is Marie Laveau, better known as the priestess of the Voodoos.
Marie also works closely with a Catholic priest named Father Père Antoine to serve the poor communities of New Orleans. He allows her to do voodoo rituals in the garden behind the St. Louis Cathedral, and in exchange, she encourages her followers to attend Mass. Marie also pays for the children of her community to receive an education, posts bond for Black women accused of petty crimes, and opens her home to whomever needs a safe place to stay. She even graciously allows strangers with no burial place to use hers. There are 84 people buried in her tomb in the St. Louis Cemetery, only 25 of whom are her relatives. Marie's generosity is in particular demand when it comes to medicine and healing. She nurses thousands of New Orleans residents, and although many attribute her abilities to magic, it is more likely she simply has expertise in herbal remedies. This is important because New Orleans in summer is a hotbed of contagious disease. The yellow fever epidemic in 1853 kills over 9,000 people, and there are 4 major cholera outbreaks between 1830 and 1875, which kill over 17,000. As one person wrote about Marie after she passed,
Marie had a large, warm heart and a tender nature, and never refused the summons from the suffering, no matter how dangerous the disease. Wherever she went, she labored faithfully and earned lifelong friends. During the yellow fever and cholera epidemics, she proved herself a noble woman, going from patient to patient, administering to the wants of each and saving many from death.
Marie officially retires from her duties as queen in 1875, and she lives out the rest of her days doing charity work and relaxing in her cottage, surrounded by her grandchildren. She dies peacefully in 1881 and is given a lavish funeral, attended by a large crowd of both black and whites. The Daily Picayune writes that
Her remains were followed to the grave by a large concourse of people, the most prominent and the most humble joining in paying their last respects to the dead.
When Marie dies, a number of local newspapers carry her obituary. And although she wasn't well known outside New Orleans, the New York Times also writes an obit for Marie. It causes renewed national interest in voodoo, and also in this particular voodoo queen. But Marie only really became famous after her death, which is part of the reason so many wild legends swirl around her. She's buried in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, in the Laveau Glapion family crypt. Thousands of visitors have made the pilgrimage there, leaving small offerings of coins, flowers, candles, or beads. Many carved X's into the side of the tomb. At one point, someone even painted it pink. I'm sure it was meant as a special tribute, but all this heavy handling did some real damage to Marie's tomb, and so the city has taken pains to restore and defend it. Marie has become a mythical, magical figure, and yet, when it comes to her actual life, there is so much we might never know, as the New York Times lamented.
The secrets of her life, however, could only be obtained from the old lady herself. But she would never tell the smallest part of what she knew, and now her lids are closed forever.
But I think Marie would be pleased by all the mystical magic and mysterious glitter surrounding her, to know that her powers are alive, even now. Happy Halloween, witches! Until next time. Thanks for joining us. If you love the Exploress, and I hope you do, tell a friend about it. Leave a review and a rating wherever you listen. That really helps other people to find the show. Become a patron. Buy one of the books on my bookshop.org profile, or just shoot me an email telling me what you like about the show. I love hearing from you. This episode was researched and written by Carly Quinn and edited and produced by me. Thank you also to Mr. Exploress for my logo and Joshua Stackhouse for my theme music.